When we think of Play-Doh in the classroom, our minds present us with images of young children molding their pieces of art. What about a fifth-year geography class? Do we expect to find these senior students playing with Play-Doh? In this episode of Reimagining Teaching and Learning in the General Studies classroom, we go to the Commonwealth School, where we find Dion King, a geography teacher, reviewing contour lines with her fifth-year group. The students manipulate 3D models of landforms made from, you guessed it, Play-Doh.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. As you're aware, before we were talking about relief, we were talking about contour lines. We have to know how to describe the relief on the map. And in order for us to describe the relief, we have to know about topographical features, and we have to be able to look at the map and to see the shape and the spacing of the contour lines and help that to translate into something that is happening in real life or 3D. So let us recap characteristics of contour lines. Before we said that contour lines are what? All right, lines that don't touch. They show the vertical interval, or VI, as we see it on the map. And the vertical interval is the difference between two consecutive contour lines. Yes. Anything else about contours? There are lines that join places. And last thing, we examine the shape and spacing of contours. Hi, my name is Dion King. I have been teaching geography at the Commonwealth School for over 10 years. And today we would have used three-dimensional figures from modeling clay to reinforce to CSEC students how to translate plan view on the map or contour lines on the map into real life or three-dimensional landforms. Modeling clay was used because it can be manipulated into several shapes. And in the CSEC program, they have to be able to recognize several landforms on the map. Some students have difficulty in translating the plan view, which is the contour lines flat on the paper, into three-dimensional lifelike landforms. And they're not able to recognize them, they're not able to describe them. So lots of time they lose marks, especially in the map reading component, because they're not able to make that link. So I would have used the modeling clay so that I could manipulate specific shapes that they need to know. So shapes like a river valley, shapes like an escarpment, a round top hill, a ridge, so that they would be able to use the technique of slicing through and translate that into the contours on the paper. So even though modeling clay might seem a little juvenile, it was just the medium that I would have used to build the shapes, and it is something that they as students could easily manipulate as well to make that linkage between plan view and cross-sectional or three-dimensional view. These students are from Barbados, which is generally quite flat, and they don't necessarily experience these features in everyday life. Sometimes we would take students to other Caribbean islands for a couple of days, and whenever they come back, they say to us, well, ma'am, I really understand certain things now. So like when we go to Dominica or Jamaica and they see larger rivers and they get to see the cockpit country in person, and they get to see like Scott's Head Tombolo in Dominica, they come back and they say, well, ma'am, I really now understand what was in the book, or I really now understand what you were trying to show me. But this group hasn't traveled. So, and we don't have those features. We don't see those features here on a day-to-day basis. So I would have used this method again to try to bring things to life for them, try to make it more practical. So, and hence the video at the end too, the video at the end where the author superimposed the contours on actual features. Yeah, that would have really brought everything home. Right. So in lieu of traveling, given economic concerns and what's not, this is a much cheaper way of them being able to experience these things without traveling. So the video, sometimes we use Google Map and Google Earth, and even with the modeling clay, to get to see and to interact and experience things that they would not see in Barbados on a day-to-day basis. So we have about 5 different shapes here. This one has a descent down there. This represents a river valley. We have a saddle or a col. So the entire feature is called a saddle. The space or the valley in the middle, that's called a col. We have another one that is an escarpment. So this side is gentle and this side is steep. Yes. And then we have a ridge and a conical hill. So what we're going to do with these features, I'm going to assign, there are 5 of them, 2, 4, 10, 12. So we can put ourselves in groups of 3 or 4. We're going to use the floss that we have here. And we're going to make some cuts through the features at an equal thickness. Once you're going to put it on the paper, make a outline, you cut it, take off the bottom part, put it back in the center, make an outline until we get to the top, and then we'll discuss what it means when we get to the top. All right, so we can probably use 1 group, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, this group is using the ruler to make sure that they do equal cuts. So I saw that some of you had some that were a little thicker than others. This group here is being very clinical. All right, so make about 2 more cuts and then we'll talk. All right, this group is finished. You can number your contours starting at 0. Numbering below or in line with the line, but never above. Look at the contours, you can see that on one side the contours are close together and on the other side they're a bit further apart, which represents that one part of the feature was steep and the other part was a little bit more gentle. Remember, we're talking about spacing and we're talking about shape, and we know that when the contours are close together the land is, and when the contours are far apart the land is good. So we can see one side having them close together, the other side having them far apart. Have a seat, please. Most of them like it. I found with this, the last 2 years, I've had classes that have a lot of males. So I try to do a lot of practical, hands-on things that will grab and keep their attention. So a lot of times they like it, they are intrigued by it, the fact that it is modeling clay and the fact that they're using floss. They're very intrigued by the process. The girls will want to be the person to outline and make sure that it's nice and neat, but the boys will be intrigued and be ready to cut through. The group that we saw just now, who were actually measuring every centimeter to cut through the models. So I find that it grabs the class attention. The boys are a lot more engaged and involved in the process. And when we move on from there and we look at the describing of the landforms on the map, we look at how to identify features of relief with the maps, I find that it's a lot easier for them when we move, because this is like an introductory step. So we're going to use those features. We're going to put everything together now to be able to describe the relief and to be able to identify features on the map. So it makes it a lot easier. But initially I had the idea to do it, and I started by looking at plasticine. But plasticine is really hard and difficult to manipulate. So then I went on to the modeling clay, but my head of department, she would have done it already using a flour dough. I think she did it a couple of years ago using a flour dough to make like landforms and whatnot. So there are different mediums that you can use. But once you have the medium, I prefer the modeling clay because it's easier to manipulate. So once you have the modeling clay and you shape it into the landforms that you want, then you give the students the direction to place the feature on the paper. You outline the feature and you cut through the modeling clay with the floss at equal intervals. As you do that, going up, you remove the bottom layer, put it back on the paper and make the outline. And when you get to the top, you should have the contour outline of the entire feature. There's a lot of information on how to do it out there. You can go to YouTube and you can search using Play-Doh or modeling clay to teach contour lines, and you'll see quite a few how-to videos, even how to make the shapes, because I had no idea how to make the shapes at first. So I did a lot of practice at lunchtime in my off lessons, shaping the shapes before I had the lesson. So some practice and also some YouTube research, and they'll be good.